Hey, this is Dave from metalepidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. What's up guys, Dave here from Metal Epidemic, back with another album review. For this review, Duncan Kyle and myself have been checking out the new album from Burton C. Bell's Ascension of the Watchers. The band's new album, Apocrypha, will be released on October 9th via Dissonance Records. So this band is made up of Burton C. Bell on vocals and guitar, John Bechdel on keyboards, who has played with Fear Factory at times, but also played in Ministry and Killing Joke, and Jace Lewis on drums, backing vocals and programming. He also produced the album. So the likelihood is that Fear Factory will be putting out a new album in 2021, but the majority of that album has been done for a couple of years.
Yeah. New album, Dave. New
album. Yeah. In the meantime, Burton has been working on the second album for his other project, Ascension of the Watchers. Did any of you ever hear Numinosum, the band's first album?
I went back, checked out some of it.
All right.
Post our conversation when this came in, and it did not grab me. So
No.
I stopped about 3 songs in, and to be honest with you, I couldn't actually put my finger on what it was I didn't like about it, but I just didn't. I was maybe expecting something different from the lineage of the people that are involved.
Yeah, it's definitely a far more like ambient affair than this new album. And if I'm honest, same as yourself, I wasn't really a fan of that last album. It's very stripped back, a lot of atmospherics. It's kind of gothic at times, and it's mainly all kind of electronic drums and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the songs just didn't do anything for me. They were a bit too minimalist. Didn't really have much substance to them, and the flow of the album I thought was really odd. Some of that sound carries over to Apocrypha, but this definitely feels more like a band than that first album. This is less minimalistic. It has a much fuller sound. So I suppose you could say it's a heavier album, but not in like a big riffs and kind of screaming vocals kind of way.
Definitely not, yeah.
This is still very much lighter than anything Fear Factory would do, but at the same time it feels closer to Fear Factory than the previous release, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so Fear Factory would have, in their better moments, would play with ideas of kind of more, what I would say is almost filmic score. Styles of songs. You go back and listen to things like Obsolete and even Digimortal to an extent. There were these tracks that were on there that were like there was no rapid bass pedals and heavy drums or anything like that. It was mostly synth based, if I'm honest. And it would allow Burton to do what he does. He has a very distinguishable, almost, I was going to say, on some, there is something very classical about the way he sings, very much like an opera singer would sing, but without the, but there is a bit of that in the cadence to how he sings, just the way he projects his voice, and it suits that for sure. And I think that's maybe the more interesting element that Ascension of the Watchers have played off of, is that's how his voice sounds, and we'll construct the music around it, which I think is a smart move, because he's the big name on here. He's a recognisable one. He's the one that I would imagine is also bringing the majority of the purchases here from people that are curious to check it out. So it certainly fits around that. I know what you're saying about it sounding like a band. The first thing that grabbed me, like right from the off, on Ghost Heart, is there is a tinge of 80s in here. And when I say 80s, I mean like this kind of almost weird kind of gothic 80s indie, like in the background with it reminded me weirdly of some of the some of the kind of more obscure moments of Gary Newman.
All right.
Specifically in the way it's constructed, less of the stuff he was doing like kind of late 90s, early 2000s. There's like these elements through there, and that was a huge surprise to me. It is something that I instantly gravitated to. I like that sort of stuff, I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm a child of the 80s, I still listen to a lot of that stuff, and it grabbed me and it brought me in, and I really liked it. And then I realised after the point of when this song should have finished, it was still going, and still going. And then at the 6-minute 20 mark, it finally came to a close, and my personal feeling was there was nothing in here that felt that the song should be that length. If anything, the kind of the Sims are playing within the ideas are catered to the pop song length. That's how you do it, maybe 4 minutes tops.
Yeah.
And it continued on. And to be honest, what Ascension of the Watchers does is the same idea over and over and over again. It is the same template for every single song. The build-up is almost identical in every single song to, we'll start the keys first and a little bit of picking guitar, and then we'll move into this, and then the drums come in, and Burton's doing his vocals, and then here's the chorus, and it follows the same thing. And whilst it's not bad, it's not poorly written. I mean, it's just that there's what I found very, very quickly is how homogenous everything sounded. There's nothing really that stands out as being vastly different to anything else on this album. It essentially sounds like one massive song. And like, if you're listening, and even vocally, like Burton, like he's doing, it's all clean vocals here, and it's all his kind of tone. It's a bit deeper than he usually sings, actually, but it works within the context of that. But the melodies all started to sound the same, all started to bleed in and sound like one long song. And there are elements here, for sure, that the fact that they're doing stuff with the keys and whatnot, that they could mix this up without detrimentally affect. They wouldn't have to change styles of music or whatever. There's plenty of other things, right in a different key. You know, like anything. You could be using small things to start to differentiate your sound. All the songs are far too long. Like, far, far, far too long. I could understand if, once again, this was pivoted as, you know, put people into perspective, we're recording this the same day as a band called La Fin or Le Fond, and they've just got a new album out, which is a kind of, I can't remember the term I used for it. It was like a musical Rashomon or something. Basically, one entry taken from 9 different points, or one idea taken from 9 different points of view, which, I mean, it was huge and vast, and it showed scope and texture and all the rest. I come to this and I feel that there probably is something as interesting they could be doing with this. An idea and a concept. Certainly the names all evoke things that are great titles of songs. And then you listen to the song and I never feel the song lives up to the title. It's kind of like a lesser version all the way through. It's not a bad album. Like, musically, it's fine. But it's not memorable in any way, shape or form. And I'll tell you right now, I could sing at a push 10 Fear Factory songs right off the top of my head, and the reason I can do that is they're memorable, and there's nothing memorable here to make it stand out. And as we were talking about off air, the cover song at the end of this album is the most pointless, needless cover I have heard in a long time on an album. So to say I'm disappointed by this release is an understatement. This is the first in a long time that's come in for review where I actually just felt bummed out by the end. I've tried it twice, and I'll tell you right now, the second listen felt fucking longer. So yeah, this is not. I didn't enjoy it. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. Certainly not Fear Factory fans. So, and that is all I will say. I once got told if you had nothing good to say nothing at all, but that doesn't make an interesting review. So I'll shut the fuck up.
Kyle, what did you make of Ascension of the Watcher's second album?
I listened to it 2.5 times, and the first time was rough, man. It was a tough fucking 10 days listening to this album. It went on forever and ever and ever and ever. It just, half the songs are twice as long as they need to be, and there's twice as many songs as need to be on this album too. If they'd have done 5 or 6 3.5-minute songs, it probably would have come off better. But I do not know how they even thought they could get through this. I just don't get it. The first song is like, it sets the tone for the album perfectly, because like Duncan said, it doesn't fucking change throughout its 10 million year lifespan. It's ridiculous. It's like, and oh my god. And all of the songs are formulaic, they're exactly the same. There's no real, the only way you can tell it's a new song is because a new fucking quote from a movie pops in that you haven't quite heard before.
There's plenty of movie quotes in here as well.
I know, it's like, welcome to 1995, guys. Hello.
I got a sampler for my Christmas.
Right, yeah. A sampler from 95. Pre-packed with movie quotes from no movie I've ever fucking heard of because we couldn't clear the samples. So... but the biggest goddamn thing on this is there's no fucking bass in this entire album. None. Like, I had to boost the bass on my mixer to listen to it about 15 decibels to be able to hear, like, oh yeah, there is some. Turned it back and it's gone. It's like a big hole in the spectrum between the drum and the guitar and the keys and whatever the fuck else they've got going on. And it's just like, this is the thinnest, crappiest sounding album I've heard in a very long time. And it should become, it's sounding a lot better than, for considering who it's coming from, you know? People with bands like Fear Factory and stuff like that behind them should be listening to this with a more critical ear. I don't know if the person, I know it was mixed by, I've never heard of the person it was mixed by. I know he's a Welsh guy, but it's like, and it was mixed in Wales in his studio, but it's like, really? What is going on here? It was a tough listen, and I'm open to many different styles of music, but this was just like, 3 songs in, I'm like, I'm done. I've had it.
See, if we were talking about an Ahab album, Dave, songs would be, 7-8 minutes long. There would be ostensibly 1 or 2 riffs played over and over and over and over again, and I would be fucking fine with that. And I don't know why it doesn't work in this side.
Well, because there's no interest. Just like you said, you can't remember a single riff, a single line, a single melody, because it's just not interesting. At least Ahab have interesting riffs that they repeat over and over again. But it's interesting, and they modulate it in a way that is interesting. But there's none of that here. It's just, here's a section, and another one, and another one, and they're all as boring as each other and uninspired. And it just makes you wonder, how did these 3-4 people get together and decide to release this? If I've written songs that are better than this, I've decided not to release because I didn't think they were up to scratch. Not to toot my own horn, but it's like,
Dave has not made a comment yet, and I get the feeling that Dave is going to be the ray of sunshine on this review. The ray of sunshine that this review desperately needs it right now before people start sending us hate mail.
I definitely didn't hate it as much as you guys, that's for sure. It's
did you listen to it all in one sitting?
It's just a massive disappointment.
I'm wondering if maybe that's where I went wrong. Maybe I should have split up.
Yeah, maybe.
Go for it, Dave.
Well, for me, it's a very constant sounding album. There's no real massive fluctuations in the intensity of this album. But I think they were going for a particular tone and atmosphere that they wanted to have kind of running through this record. And when you sit and listen to this, preferably with headphones to probably get the full experience, I think that the atmosphere of the album definitely comes through. I think that's partly down to the keyboards. I think they play a huge part in setting the tone for each track. But also Burton's vocals do add a huge amount of character to each track. I think this would be a completely different record without Burton C. Bell on this album. As you said, Duncan, he pretty much makes this album. And you can hear how much more confident he is in this record compared to, if you go back to the last album from this band, the first album. Yeah, completely. His vocals sound completely different. A lot more confidence in this album. And even though Kyle had some issues with the production of this album is head and shoulders
Yeah,
above the
you
last
go
one.
back and listen to the other one.
I'm not
Kyle,
going
you
back
will-
and listening to that. I'm just going to say it right now. There's no way.
It does the previous one does, and I think from what I remember reading about it, I think it was all very much, we don't have a lot of time to do this, let's just get something kind of swung together and we'll put it out.
I'd argue that the production is almost as important as the songs in this album to help kind of create that mood. But I'd definitely say Burton's melodies are more on point on this album than the last one. But while I like the tone on the album, I didn't think every track was a triumph. Like it opens, I thought it opened pretty strongly. I think Ghost Heart is probably the best song in the album, which was the first single they released, and a good opener for the album. Yeah, it's a little long, but it definitely showcases that the band's fuller sound compared to that last album. It's a lot more catchy than anything on the last album, really. And as I said, the production sounds pretty good as well. I was picking up a bit more of almost like a Cure type vibe on that.
Definitely.
On the guitar.
Definitely.
On that track. But as I said, I do think it's the album's best track. And there are some other interesting elements, vocally and musically, that come later in the album. I just don't think they quite hit the highs of that first track. I liked some of the melodies on the title track. And Wolf Interlude, along with the kind of guitar melody, had a bit of a Jesu type thing going on. I quite liked the little vocoder type effect that they used on, is it Honore? Is that how you pronounce
I
that?
did not like that, and I'm a vocoder.
Did you not?
No.
I thought it added a bit of contrast. It was a part of the track that kind of stood out to me. Kind of, it kind of caught my attention.
It's different sounding, I'll give you that.
Yeah. I liked the kind of almost like Killing Joke vibes on Stormcrow, which it's a purely instrumental track apart from the last few seconds, but I thought it was quite a nice change in the middle of the album. The closing track,
this is a head scratcher.
Terence Trent D'Arby's Sign Your Name. It wasn't recognisable to me at all initially. Like, when it was going on through the first verse, I was thinking, what is this? I couldn't quite picture what it was. When the chorus kicked in, then it was like it became apparent that what the song was, and it was a cover. And I love the original. I think Terence Trent D'Arby's a stunning vocalist. It's a great track. And I wasn't sure if Burton had the right type of voice for this type of track. But after I'd listened to it a few times, I was starting to get on board with it. Even though they went more acoustic and more kind of melancholic with it, after I heard it a few times, I didn't dislike it as much as I did the first time.
That's called Stockholm Syndrome.
The other thing which I'll mention is something you guys already touched on, but yeah, the length of the album is far too long.
This is over an hour long. Over an hour long. For this album,
and it's only 11 tracks,
and they put in this tops over an hour, and then they do a cover song, and you're like, this is the encore to the gig I didn't clap for, and we're coming back to do another song. I don't want this. Here we go.
I'm already at home and drunk on my couch.
Obviously they have the idea how they want to sound and all the rest, but see if you see any of the greats, those great record producers sitting down with bands. I always go back to Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin's one of the best ones to watch, and you see him sitting down with the Chili Peppers, and he's just like that, Flea's playing this ridiculous, and he's like that. No, just keep it simple. Take that bit out. Just keep it like this. And then you hear the end song, and it fucking sounds amazing. And it's because you have someone external from the project listening to the entire thing, and as a result can critique the entire thing. If you are so invested in what you're doing, you can't understand why people might not want to listen to 6.5 minutes.
You just lose sight of it.
You do. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think there's an instrumental track on here, or mostly instrumental track, which sounded to me like a film score, and I really liked that. And then part of me started to think, you could almost split this album up into 3 EPs. Yeah. And I think that's the way you consume it. You know what I mean? Like Burton C. Bell singing like one track there, something a bit shorter, an instrumental, and another one of the tracks with vocals on it. Boom, one EP done. Next EP, you could do that, and I think that works. But in any way, shape, or form, my confusion was, at what point has anyone taken a decision here? And like I say, I don't mind the production at all. I just don't understand how anyone thinks this is necessarily a palatable commercial venture. Maybe it's not. Maybe from the band's position, this is more just a labour of love that they wanted to get out there. And if that's the case, that's fine.
Yeah, I think overall, for me, it does still have some good qualities. I've heard way worse albums this year. I dug the production, and I like the overall kind of feel and tone of the album. I'm just not sure that they're like firing in all cylinders yet.
I'm not going to, like, FYI, it's not going to get a big grade from me. But I don't think I've been mean about it. I don't think I've said anything in here.
I was meaner than you about it, but I mean,
I don't think I've said anything in here which personally attacks any of them at all.
No.
I don't think the musicianship is bad either.
No.
I just think as an album, as a release, it's too long, it's too baggy, it's not memorable, and that's fine. I mean, like I say, there's an audience for everything. Like, the longer I'm on this planet, the more I realise there's an audience. Every band has at least one fan, right? Even if it's their mother. You know what I mean? Like, every band has one. And someone out there will really like this and gravitate towards it, and it'll be their album of the year, and that is great. And of the three of us on this, if you'd said on paper things like words like The Cure, synth driven, and all the rest, the one person in here that should be going, this is fucking great, is me. Yeah. Those are all, that's my bag, that's my world, that's where I come from. And it just does nothing for me. Doesn't excite me at all. So I'll save you the what grade are we giving this for you to ask me like that. This is a 2. It's a 2. Yeah, I couldn't give it any. It's a 2 because, like I say, there are a couple of tracks and elements which I think work really, really well. But overall, I mean, it's not a case of will I have time to get around to it. I will never listen to this again. It's an hour. It's an hour of my life. I could listen to 2 albums in the time that would take me to listen to this. So, no.
Okay. Kyle, what about yourself?
It's not going to get a great grade either, because I love synth stuff. I love The Cure. I love stuff like that as well. This should have appealed to me as well, but because they put it together in such a way. And the real thing is, there are things that work, and there are elements, and there are passages, and there are synth sounds and tones and guitars and stuff that really do work. And if they just focused it and stripped stuff back and cut it in half, it would work great. If it was a half-hour, 8-track album of this kind of stuff and they had some more interesting things, it would be amazing. And I think if they sat down and really got together and did it, it would be really good. But yeah, and put some goddamn bass in it, it'd be great. But for this one, I think they need to work on their sound, and it's a 2 from me too.
2.
Just to let the listeners out there know, Kyle plays bass. He is a bassist, which might be why he's being so heavy towards the lack of bass.
I mean, when you have to boost it by 15 decibels to figure out that it's actually there, it's like, okay, you've done something wrong here.
Dave, what are you giving it?
I am probably going to go in at a 3. As I said, I don't think it's terrible. I've heard way worse this year. I enjoy the production. I like the tone of it. They are clearly good musicians. I think this just needs a bit of tweaking here and there, and some of the length taken off it. They've definitely got potential. So, I wouldn't rule out listening to their next album at all. But for this one, I'd probably go with 3 out of 5. Let us know what you think. If you've heard the album, check it out. It comes out on the 9th of October. It's called Apocrypha. It's out on Dissonance Records on the 9th. Let us know what you think. Put some comments in below. If you want to check out the band, they're on Facebook, facebook.com/AOTW band. I'll put a link in the description below with a link to the Facebook page. Thanks once again for checking out our review, guys. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care, and we'll speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
See you later.